welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Natasha Martinez, and this is the daily show where we give you all the latest news in the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Kicking off our show today is Perri Nemiroff.
Hey guys, so happy to be back. Welcome to Thursday Movie Talk. This is going to be a great show. The shit rats needed a nap after yesterday's performance, but I got two Marks with me today. Natasha, you want to introduce them?
Mark Sandwich. Also here, Mark Reilly.
Oh, hey there. Happy to be one part of the bread in this Mark sandwich.
One part of the bread. And the other part of the bread, Mark Ellis.
This is not a Mark sandwich today because it's National Burrito Day. It's
What?
a Mark burrito.
Whoa.
Finally,
Okay.
I get to live out my dream of being a tortilla alongside Mark Reilly.
Do we get free burritos somewhere?
You should probably get free burritos at a lot of places. Yeah.
I would think, because like Ben & Jerry's does free ice cream day. We
should
need to look into this.
We should go to Ben & Jerry's and demand they make us a burrito.
That
That
makes
logic
sense.
is sound.
Burrito sounds like the best invention ever.
This is already off to a hell of a start.
Before we only think about food, let's introduce the very first story of the day, Natasha.
Okay, with Paramount set to release Transformers The Last Night in just a few short months, the movie will mark the last time franchise director Michael Bay helms a movie in the series. Something he confirmed while speaking to Rolling Stone over a year ago, but now it seems that he's had a change of heart. Speaking to MTV at this past week's CinemaCon in Las Vegas, Bay revealed that Paramount has 14 separate Transformers ideas, including a spinoff he'd be interested in directing. There are 14 stories written, and there's good stuff. I would like to do one of them, though, a Transformers spinoff. Perri, do you think Bay will actually return to direct one of the 14 Transformers ideas for Paramount should The Last Night prove successful?
Roke is going to be pissed. We're talking about this today and not tomorrow. I'll say that. Do I think that he could return to direct another one if they're super successful and they continue to be successful? Yes, at some point I do think so. This story and this idea that they're not saying that, oh, we have 14 scripts ready to go. We have a 14 movie shared universe planned and mapped out. They had a big writer's room that was tossing around ideas. They have 14 story ideas, and I don't know the quality of those. Even though I don't really love the Transformers film franchise, I imagine, especially when they open the door to spin-offs, that gives them the opportunity to play. So for all I know, there's a good one buried in there, and especially if Michael Bay is thinking about going the spin-off route as a director, I don't know, maybe that gives him, it puts him in like a little more of a box where he was doing the same like mashup, like jumble of CGI nonsense in the past films. So maybe if he's forced to focus on a single character, that'll make it a little better. I don't know, Ellis, you look at me like I'm being too hopeful.
It's just like saying, hey, you're going to go, into a smaller bathroom. You're still making the same stool. I don't want to see him like God. Somebody else come to the franchise. Somebody follow.
That is way better than a sports analogy.
I got those too.
It's the correct analogy.
I would honor National Burrito Day by mentioning 3 hours after the fact. This is just not what I wanted to hear. It's kind of funny that somebody says they have 14 ideas when. Yeah, that's great, but none of the first 6 ones you had have really paid off the way we wanted them to. So when you throw, we got 14 more ideas, I'm like, well, if they're just as bad as the other ones, then I'm not really going to get excited. And it's just Michael Bay's becoming that guy, with the Transformers franchise anyway, that keeps saying, okay, this is the last one. And then he just keeps coming back. And I'm sure part of it is because it's a dump truck of money that they back up to his house. And it's also because he does seem to have some attachment to this franchise emotionally. He loves doing these movies, and he gets excited about doing it. Perri, I will subscribe to your theory, because I'm nothing if not an optimist, that maybe if he did, like, say, a Bumblebee spinoff or something like that, it does give him a smaller story to tell, because we've seen Michael Bay, when he's telling a smaller story that doesn't necessarily have intergalactic and time travel implications, that he can do a really good job. I love 13 Hours. Obviously, I love The Rock. A lot of people like Pain and Gain, even though I didn't. That's still a credit to his resume. So maybe if he can do a smaller Transformers story, we can see this, but I'm really, really got to squint my eyes to do that.
Travis Knight already has that Bumblebee spinoff on lock, so Bay can't do that, but it could be a very
Something like
similar
that,
situation where it's another Transformer that Bay can then focus on. I don't know. That sounds like it's got more potential than Transformers like 25 or something for him. Reilly, what do you think? Out of those 14 ideas, is there any chance one of them will be a really solid Transformers movie?
Yeah, and that's going to be Grimlock and his boy. It's going to be a story, a boy and his dog, a boy and Grimlock, the Dinobot, and they get into all sorts of shenanigans. Don't do it, Michael Bay. Stop it. Please. Will somebody please stop Michael Bay? Look, he said he was done. He said he was done after Extinction. Then he said he was done after this one. And I agree with you, Mark Ellis. He is better. 13 Hours is a great movie. I enjoyed that movie a lot, and I really liked that movie so much because it was not Transformers. It was going back to his roots somewhat. It was serious. It wasn't not roots saying like The Rock meets, this horrible tragedy, that 13 Hours was based on. But that just showed to me that he has it in him to make better movies than Transformers, and I feel like he's just kind of settling for these movies. He does these movies, he takes the paycheck, and he just throws up a bunch of crap on screen without really caring. I don't feel like he cares anymore. He's done 5 of these movies now. I think it's time to move on. I'm excited to see Travis Knight's Bumblebee movie. Kubo and the Two Strings is a fantastic movie to get his sensibilities on a Bumblebee movie in a smaller sandbox and get maybe some character. I don't know. I like my movies to have characters in them. These Transformers movies do not have characters. They have a bunch of robots, and I don't know which robot is which. That's the Transformers movie in a nutshell. I know somewhere Roca is already screaming at me because he feels like this is an actual series that's fun. It is. I had fun with the first one. I had fun with the third one. The rest are just forgettable. So please, I just want him away from it. Go somewhere else. Do something else. Take Transformers away from this man, please.
You mentioned stopping him. I feel like originally I was thinking one of the only possible ways to stop him is if people just stopped going and the series stopped making money. What if the Bumblebee movie came out and that was the first one to have box office success and critical success? Maybe, because he is a producer too, maybe he will step back and realize, you know what? Hiring folks like Travis Knight, maybe that's the way to go, and maybe I just need to function as some sort of overseer.
I think that when he sees a Bumblebee movie come out and it's get 95% on Rotten Tomatoes and it makes gobs of money, all that does is make Michael Bay start to get competitive and say, oh, really? I can do a better movie than that. And then we get more Hitler and Sir Lancelot in the movie.
And if you look at this, I mean, there's a reason why there are 14 ideas and that he's interested in one, because the last 2 movies, $1 billion each. So they're going up. Mm-hmm. I don't understand it. The critical reception is going down and the money is going up, at least worldwide. Worldwide, they love their Transformers. I get it. I love the Transformers brand. With some fresh blood, some critical reception, that like a Bumblebee movie. God, Mark, now you're scaring me. If Travis Knight knocks it out of the park, Michael Bay is like sitting back going, you know what? Screw that guy. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to make the best damn Transformer. And then it's just this endless circle.
I think the story marks my biggest failure at attempt to be optimistic about something ever.
You did a great job. You adjudicated yourself nicely. I think at the end of the day, nobody's forcing anybody to watch Transformers movies, okay? This is not an international tragedy. However, if you grew up loving Transformers or you want to get some cool robots in a neat movie that actually is good, it's just not going to happen with Michael Bay. I don't see any evidence that it's going to change with The Last Night, so it's a bummer in that regard.
All right, let's see if we can get some positivity with story number 2. Natasha, what's that?
It was back in November of 2015 where it was first revealed that Activision Blizzard were making plans for a movie based on the video game series Call of Duty. Now, in an interview with The Guardian, co-presidents of Activision Blizzard Studios, Stacey Shear and Nick Van Dyke, opened up about their plans for the franchise, reiterating that the first film could arrive as early as 2018 and teasing it as the first movie in a shared universe a la the MCU. We have plotted out many years. We put together this group of writers to talk about where we're going. There'll be a film that feels more like Black Ops, the story behind the story. The Modern Warfare series looks at what it's like to fight a war with the eyes of the world on you, co-president Stacey Shear said. Co-president Nick Van Dyke added, it's going to have the same sort of high adrenaline, high energy aesthetic as the game, but it's not a literal adaptation. It's a much more broad and inclusive, global in scope, a big tentpole Marvel-esque movie. Reilly, what do you think of a shared universe of movies based on the Call of Duty video game series?
I don't know. I'm getting pretty tired of this shared universe talk. It seems like every franchise they drop the Marvel name. They go, it's Marvel-esque. And what I'd like these guys at Activision Blizzard to do is to say, we're going to make a Call of Duty movie and make it the best damn movie we can make it, and then see where it goes from there. Because I feel like you're counting your chickens before they hatch. You're looking past the big game at the other games down the line without and that takes away from some of the fun or a good movie that you can make, because I love the Call of Duty games. I played most all of them, and I think there are great storylines in there. And so a lot of these quotes say they're not going to be like direct adaptations of these games. There's great storylines in there. I mean, Kevin Spacey was in one of these games, for God's sakes. It was great. And so I kind of, for me, I like the idea of like the World War III aspect set in the future. I know there's a Call of Duty now that you can get, I believe, please help me out here, on the interwebs, where they can go to space. That's pretty fun. Like maybe a sci-fi spin on a Call of Duty, because you know we have a lot of war movies out there. We have a lot. I mean, is it going to be like Call of Duty, the movie, and it's just the name, and then they create their own war movie, which I can get behind. But again, for this to work for me, focus on the first movie, really set up the movie, the characters, the universe there, and then see where it goes from there.
The way the industry works, it feels like it's almost impossible to take that approach. I kind of wish that what they were doing is they only announced one movie, and obviously behind closed doors, I wouldn't judge them if they were planning a shared universe or future films and mapping everything out. Actually, I would probably judge them if down the line they released a Call of Duty movie, it was a huge hit, and it was like, uh-oh, now what do we do? And then we have 4 or 5 years to get another one. Then I would judge them. I mean, one of the best lessons I ever learned in school is anytime you go out with a movie that you're proud of, you always have something else in your back pocket. That's just the way the industry works if you want to keep going. So
Sure.
it does make sense. I just hope that they're not too wrapped up in let's try to be the next Marvel and let's make that rather than focus on what the first one is in order to get that whole thing started. I've never played the games, but the way it's described here, I kind of do like it. A lot of the articles I read, though, said that there isn't much story, that it's mostly just the first shooter stuff, and it abandons all the main characters that it established.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, it's a video game, you know. It's the story is not what's keeping you there. I mean, it's entertaining. There are elements there that could really jump off into a movie franchise. And I get what you're saying, looking ahead. It just, to your point, the Marvel thing, everybody looks at Marvel. That's where I get worried, because you're trying to create something that worked for Marvel without really focusing on the brand that you have in front of you.
I always find it funny when someone tries to pitch their own thing and then has to say Marvel-esque,
Yeah.
or we're trying to do it like Marvel. That's not really the greatest selling tool. Ellis, what do you think?
But, you know, we talk about all these movies coming out that are based on video games like Warcraft or Assassin's Creed or Tomb Raider, and we're waiting for the one to be good, to turn the tide of video game films. Maybe it is Call of Duty. I mean, I would prefer just go simple and just make like a Duck Hunt movie and just make that one good. And then we'll go from 8-bit to 16-bit and so on. But Reilly's right. The Call of Duty games are great. They're a little lean on story, where it's not something that is going to be so involved like Mass Effect or even like a Splinter Cell, where you're following the tale of Sam Fisher going into all these different places. But if you're doing a Black Ops movie, that's really intriguing to me. I do agree that it should be somewhat set in the future if you're looking at World War III. I'm much more interested in that than manufacturing a story and putting a fictional take on something that would have happened during a real-life event that's already taken place, like a Vietnam or World War II, something like that. But eventually, if you do have World War III and you go to outer space, maybe the gang from Call of Duty Modern Warfare can run into Master Chief from Halo, and then there's our shared universe. There's the Halo movie we've been waiting for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
You just blew my mind.
That's what I do here, Reilly.
That
I blow
works.
minds and I eat burritos.
That works. Now, are there Transformers in this shared
God
universe?
damn it, you just
Damn
ruined
it.
it. You just ruined my shared universe.
Sorry.
All right, now
sorry.
now we have no choice but to move on to opening this week. Natasha, you want to tell us what's hitting theaters this weekend?
Yes, Smurfs: The Lost Village. Best friend Smurfette, voiced by Demi Lovato. Brainy, voiced by Danny Pudi. Clumsy, voiced by Jack McBrayer. And Hefty, voiced by Joe Manganiello, use a special map that guides them through the Forbidden Forest on an adventure that leads them to discover the biggest secret in Smurf history. Also coming out this week is Going in Style. Lifelong buddies Willie, played by Morgan Freeman, Joe, played by Michael Caine, and Albert, played by Alan Arkin, decide to buck retirement and step off the straight and narrow when their pension funds become a corporate casualty. Desperate to pay the bills, the three men risk it all by embarking on a daring adventure to knock off the very bank that absconded with their money.
Oh boy. Well, here's the toughest question I'm going to ask you guys all week. If you had to pick between these two movies, which would you say?
Going in Style. But I would see that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the cast. The cast is great. You got Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, and Alan Arkin. It's directed by Zach Braff. Okay, that surprised me. Zach Braff is directing this movie. Garden State is a great movie. Sure, it looks a little bit kind of a worn out kind of premise, but I like the talent. I haven't heard much about the movie critically. Has it? You guys haven't seen it yet, have you?
I haven't seen the movie, but they had a screening for it last night, and we were doing the Schmoes Know Live show. They also had a screening for Smurfs last night. So I would much rather see Going in Style, because sometimes you just like to see familiar faces that make you giggle. This is kind of like Las Vegas meets Tower Heist.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking for Oscar material here. I just want a fun, breezy 90-minute movie that's going to make me laugh a little bit. But I'm seeing Smurfs tonight. Harloff and I are going to see Smurfs tonight.
Oh, God
because
bless
that's
you.
the movie that everybody's going to be talking about. And to its credit, it looks better than the other Smurfs movies because we're not going into live action. We're not going to run into Neil Patrick Harris. This looks like the right way to do Smurfs. Now, whether it's going to appeal to me is a different story, but I'm at least excited to see what the Smurf Village looks like for 90 minutes. And then when we go to this Lost Village, Gargamel looks funny. The cat looks good. I'm optimistic, baby.
Julia Roberts voicing a Smurf.
Mm-hmm.
That was.
I can't tell if you guys are being sarcastic or not.
Well, she's not voicing a Smurf. She's voicing some other mutant creature, or maybe it's another Smurf that's
Well,
that's in the Lost Village.
Well,
So it's more Smurfs.
There's a sadly the commercial is not selling it for me with Julia Roberts, because when they tout Julia Roberts, they cut to her in the recording booth, and she looks like she just doesn't want to be there. She's like, "Yeah, I'm a Smurf," and then it cuts, and I'm like, "Not a good recommendation from Julia Roberts."
I
She
can't
looked
wait to
pretty.
go watch that.
She looked pretty bored and pretty just kind of. She does. I don't know. She said Smurf or Smurfus, or she said something Smurfy
Hey.
in it, so it made me think she's a Smurf.
It's funny because what I was going to say is that the Going in Style trailers, even though that cast looks great, obviously, and I do like Zach Braff, all the trailers have been not very
Yeah.
funny, to the point of making me sad to see them have to do those things. So I feel like if I see Smurfs and I don't like it, it's going to be like, whatever, there's another Smurfs movie. But if I see that movie and I don't like it, I'm going to be really sad for some of like the best actors in the business who just have to do stupid things. Yeah. So that's it. You got good stuff to pick from this weekend. Have at it. All right, let's move on to buy or sell. Natasha, what's our first topic today?
Variety is reporting that Christian Bale, Steve Carell, and Amy Adams are in early talks to star in the Dick Cheney biopic that has Adam McKay attached to direct. The Paramount project is the follow-up to Adam McKay's The Big Short, his Oscar-nominated movie about the housing market collapse in the mid-2000s. This new movie will tackle the controversial Cheney, who acted as vice president under President George W. Bush during some of the most tumultuous times in American history. Bale is in talks to portray Cheney, while Carell is up for the role of Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. Adams would play Cheney's wife, Lynn Cheney. The filmmaker's plan is to shoot in September with a release targeted for late 2018. Mark, buy or sell a Dick Cheney biopic with Christian Bale starring alongside Steve Carell and Amy Adams?
Sure, I'll buy the Christian Bale can shoot his friend in the face during a hunting accident. I think this could happen, and it's something I would look forward to, because I like seeing when we have actors that are very well known and they play famous historical figures, because I look forward to that first image. Like, remember the first time you saw Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln? You're like, oh my God, that's the guy on the $5 bill. I would to see a little bit of Christian Bale, but mostly it looks like Dick Cheney. And the same thing with Steve Carell as Rumsfeld. And as Reilly, you brought up in our pre-production meeting, now who do you get to play George W. Bush? Do you bring back Josh Brolin? Ooh.
Shared universe.
No, we'll throw some Smurfs in there, and it'll be a lot of fun. But
God.
This is a project I look forward to simply because Adam McKay wants to do it. And the way that Adam McKay handled The Big Short, it was one of my favorite movies of whatever year it came out. And I thought it was just an amazing way to take a very complex story with a lot of moving parts and make it digestible for dopes like me. If you can do that with the political system during the time Dick Cheney was in power, I would be all on board to check it out.
Yeah, obviously I have to buy this because of the cast. I mean, Christian Bale, Amy Adams, Steve Carell. Why would I ever say no to just about anything they're cast in? But the biggest thing here for me is Adam McKay, and I tend to shy away from things that are about the financial system or the political system. It's just, that's not the kind of movie I tend to want to see. The Big Short, though, it really hit me. It hit me on more levels than just spitting out information that I didn't think I would understand. It actually taught me about what happened, and it also gave me characters that I can get behind and feel invested in, and that's kind of the perfect pairing. And if he can achieve the same thing with this, and especially that same style and that same amount of energy, I just always feel like when I watch a movie with subject matter that I'm not into, if that is like the most pivotal time for the pace to be on point, and the pace in The Big Short was so special, and it made it so perfect to convey that kind of information, and that's part of the reason why that movie was also so unique. So if he can achieve the same thing with this group of people here, I think he could be, not to get too ahead, but this could be another Academy Awards package. What do you think, Reilly?
It's a huge buy for me. And yes, it's going to be an Academy Award package. I think, how can you deny Christian Bale, Steve Carell, and Amy Adams disappearing in these roles? Like, and you said it, Ellis, like even Gary Oldman, that first image that came out as Winston Churchill, where you're like, that's them. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm already going, what is Christian Bale going to look like as Dick Cheney? What is Steve Carell going to look like as Rumsfeld? When are we going to get a George W. Bush? I know, you look at me, I have Superman, superheroes, Star Wars. I love political movies. They're like, they're not a guilty movie pleasure. They're like something I seek out. Lincoln, JFK, these movies I just love. You learn something. You see the W. I even love W. Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought it was a great movie. So this, to me, you're going to get Adam McKay's signature humor underlying this dramatic thing that's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to go 9/11. I don't know if they're going to touch that. I'm wondering if we're going to be kind of in the middle of the administration, maybe after 4 years, the war in Iraq, the controversy over weapons of mass destruction that leads him to a war that I know Dick Cheney was all about. It seemed like, from what I've heard from the history lessons, from learning all these things, he wanted to go to war. Was he the the whispering in George W.'s ear? That's an interesting dynamic. So with Adam McKay doing this and the talent behind this, my God, I'm in.
He seemed to be the Serpentor to George W. Bush's Cobra Commander,
Exactly,
and then Rumsfeld
right?
is Destro in there. That's
Yeah.
the movie. Make that movie.
Oh,
The Iago to the Othello. I mean, you never know. I love all these metaphors he can come up with. This is such a fascinating time in our American history, and with Adam McKay behind it, it's a huge buy.
McKay is also a guy who I trust to deliver the facts as opposed to do like what Oliver Stone has a tendency to do sometime when he's telling a historical work, is he likes to put his own spin on it, which is entertaining, but I would rather have it be more of a fact-based movie, which is what Adam McKay, again, did so brilliantly with The Big Short.
Yeah.
And this is the guy who made Anchorman, and now we're talking about him and him being one of the frontrunners to make all of these political movies, and it's just, that guy has boatloads of talent, and I can't wait to see what he does with
And
this.
based on that quote, it does sound like that's the route he would go with this.
Mm-hmm.
He, like, how much he shaped modern America's place in the world and how shocking the methods were by which he gained his power.
Right.
So if he sticks to that quote, we could get exactly that. All right, Natasha, what's our next story?
According to a report from Variety, Legendary Pictures has tapped veteran scribe and Forrest Gump screenwriter Eric Roth to write the Dune reboot that will be directed by Arrival's Denis Villeneuve. Legendary closed a deal with the Frank Herbert estate last Thanksgiving for his iconic novel, granting the studio the rights to not only a film franchise but also TV projects that can be spun off from the movies. The movie is heading into active development with a release date yet to be determined. Reilly, buy or sell a Dune reboot written by Eric Roth?
Yep, another big buy for me. I cannot wait. When they announced a Dune reboot with Denis Villeneuve, I signed up immediately. Arrival was my favorite movie of last year. Sicario, I felt, was robbed in Oscar categories. I thought it should have been nominated across the board, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, all the way down the line. Denis Villeneuve is a talent, and you're telling me he's going to take on Dune? This is a massive film franchise waiting to happen. I know they're talking about offshoots that could potentially go to television. So you're telling me Denis Villeneuve is going to be the architect for that. The man behind it, Eric Roth, my God, he is a talent. He wrote Munich, he wrote Forrest Gump and won an Oscar for it, and he wrote The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Those are three fantastic movies. I did see a little chatter when they said Forrest Gump writer, because that's the headlines they were using. And I'm like, sure, Forrest Gump, but that's a fantastic, I love Forrest Gump. But I go to Munich, and then I think of Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and then this is his first sci-fi adaptation, so he's a smart man. Eric Roth knows what he's doing. This is, I can't wait to see what he comes up with for a Dune reboot. And with the talent involved now, let's get to some casting. I can't wait see what happens.
What you thinking, Ellis?
I'll buy it, but it's not enthusiastic just yet. For some of the reservations that Reilly pointed out is that he hasn't been in the world of science fiction yet, which is fine. I don't need you to be steeped in sci-fi. I just need you to be a great storyteller. That's clearly what Eric Roth has been able to do in his career. So the big headline to me is that, again, we're moving forward with this Dune movie that has been taking forever to get off the ground, trying to find the different pieces of talent behind the camera. They settled on Denis Villeneuve, and that is still the big story to me, is that we're moving forward with a guy who clearly has a singular artistic vision, and virtually everything he's done has impressed me. And he's also a guy who didn't necessarily come from a world of science fiction until he got into Blade Runner and Your Arrivals, because he also, like Reilly said, when he did something like Sicario, that's a gritty, realistic feeling movie. And same thing if you want to take Munich. So if you get those guys together and they're doing a story that's now set in a science fiction universe, I tend to believe in that town, although I'm not quite as on board as the other Mark.
I can't believe it, but I'm going to buy this as well. And the reason I'm so shocked is because when I saw this story, I had never seen the other Dune movie, so I put it on last night. That's
David Lynch's Dune?
That's something else.
It's a trip.
That's something else. It's a trip.
That's a cult following there.
It is a very weird thing to watch that and think about it being a Denis Villeneuve movie, though.
Well, yeah, you can't look at the David Lynch movie.
No, you
because
really
it's gonna
can't
be it's
at
gonna be
all.
so different in tone. And Ellis, you bring up like Sicario, and you can't. And it's like down and gritty and dark, and that's what Denis is going to bring to it. But think about Sicario, and then think about Arrival, and you can start to get there. At least in my mind, I can picture it completely. Mm-hmm. I've read the book, so the book is in need of Denis Villeneuve's touch, because David Lynch made his movie, made what he wanted to make, and then George Lucas looked at him for Return of the Jedi, and then it was before that, and he went off and made Dune, thankfully.
You'd love to see that version of Return of the Jedi.
I would.
Right?
This
is like a weird, like different alternate universe, get the Flash to do his Flashpoint thing.
Yeah.
And let me see Revenge of the Jedi, because it would be Revenge of the Jedi.
It would be Revenge of the Jedi, with David Lynch. Yeah.
Question, does this new Dune adaptation, do we throw Sting in there in some cameo?
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
Eric Roth,
let's do it.
You write Sting in there, damn it.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about this is that we've been talking about Dune for how many years? A Dune reboot for so many years. It seems like it's going to happen. And if they're just bringing this writer on board now, clearly it's still going to take time. But recently there was a quote from Villeneuve that he said that this is going to be his next movie. So it's nice to actually have in the back of my head now that we can discuss this, knowing that it's likely that it's going to happen. Obviously, nothing in this industry is a guarantee, but it seems like this will actually move forward in the future.
Right. Fun game for you kids at home to try. So start talking to somebody who you kind of know casually about Dune. They're either going to become your best friend or they may never speak to you again. Work on it.
Yeah.
Do you accept that challenge? In the meantime, we have one more buy or sell story. Natasha, what is it?
THR is reporting that Oscar-nominated actor Demian Bichir will star in The Nun, the latest horror movie spin-off based in the universe of The Conjuring. Corin Hardy is directing the movie, which is based on the demon nun character from The Conjuring 2. Bichir will play a priest named Father Burke, who is dispatched by Rome to investigate the mysterious death of a nun. The Nun begins shooting this summer with a release date set for July 13th, 2018. Perri, buy or sell Demian Bichir in The Nun?
I'm going to buy it. We're talking about an Academy Award nominated actor. Of course, I'm going to like that they just recruited him to be in this movie. The only thing that has me worried, and I've said it before when we've talked about The Nun, is that naturally my mind didn't go to, I want another movie in the Conjuring cinematic universe, and I want it to be about the nun. That's just pretty much the last thing I think I would have picked after The Conjuring 2. I wanted the Crooked Man. We didn't get the Crooked Man. We have the nun.
What? You're taking the Crooked Man over the nun?
Oh my God,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
The Crooked Man was like, we didn't need him in the movie. We needed a scary nun. Yeah,
We
the
don't-
nun. The nun.
No, the Crooked Man had so much more like texture, and you could have so much fun with that little toy that he grows out
I
of.
just
And
felt like it was the Babadook, and it wasn't as good of a version of the Babadook.
it's also an issue because the nun is so directly connected to Lorraine Warren, so I can't quite figure out how they're going to go back with that character. However, now that we finally got an Annabelle 2 trailer, some folks are suggesting that because there are nuns in the Annabelle 2 movie, that maybe something's going to happen to one of those nuns, and that'll pave the way to The Nun, the movie. And if that winds up being true, there's a great way to continue to establish a cinematic universe if you pave the way that way. And it's not, I would love it if they don't reveal, if that is the case, I would love it if they don't reveal that and it's just like, is it going to happen or isn't it? And then at the end of the movie, we realize, that nun is that nun. Then I'll like it. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, man. I love getting scared by nuns. I went to Catholic school for a decade, and they are the scariest creatures on the planet. Some of them are nice, and then other ones give you detention for no reason whatsoever. They continue to haunt you after they perish. This is what I'm looking forward to from the Nun movie. The Conjuring 2 it wasn't the scariest movie. I didn't like it nearly as much as I liked the first one, but God, that nun, it just, look at that. Who isn't going to be scared of that? You're going to tell me the Crooked Man is going to make a better movie than that scary beast right there? Mm-hmm. Come on, Perri.
Mm-hmm. Damn it. Reilly, back me up.
I'll back you up.
What?
Yep.
Look, we've discussed this many times on...
The Mark Burrito Unravels.
Yeah, we've discussed this on Nightmares with a new episode that dropped yesterday. Check it out on Collider Video. Nice plug. But yeah, when we talked about this, I loved Conjuring 2, and yeah, I liked the Crooked Man. I liked the way it looked. I liked the mythology that could be possibly explored in it, and the nun, as we know, was added in pretty last minute. It was in reshoots where James Wan got an idea and added it in. I happen to really like the nun, too. I thought it is scary. I'm with you, Ellis. Look at that thing. That thing is scary.
Yeah, she just showed up on set, and they're like, well, we can't not put her in the movie.
Yeah, you're like, okay, do not kill me, please, demon nun. And I like the mythology on it, but like we did discuss in Nightmares, Perri, it is connected to Lorraine Warren. So how are we going to get outside of that? What I am buying about this is not only the actor, but I like just the simple premise. He's a priest that goes to investigate the murder of a nun, or the death of a nun. What was it? A murder or a death? Because that'll change a lot. So
that's probably
it's the mysterious death of a nun.
Mysterious death. There we go. Could be murder. So that to me is a little interesting. I'm picturing like we're in the Vatican. Maybe we're in Rome. I don't know yet. I don't know anything about this movie yet, but I like that element of it, setting up a potential, the spinoff of this nun. So I'm very interested in learning more about this. Maybe they'll introduce the Crooked Man in there as well.
You know what?
Right?
I don't need you crooked folk to be singing
Crooked
your song
folk.
about that
words.
guy. You know what? Because I think the nun is the scarier of the creatures in The Conjuring 2. You know who agrees with me? The boss baby sitting right behind you. He's been judging you that entire diatribe. Look at him.
Boss baby.
Look at him, just breathing down your neck.
Damn, he is. He's like, look at me. You know what? Screw you, boss baby. You don't judge me. I do what I want here.
Boss baby's not happening.
Cookies are for closers.
All right, that is the end of Buy or Sell. Before we move over to Mailbag, I want to remind you guys that we're going to take your live Twitter questions at the end of the show. So start tweeting those in right now to Collider Video on Twitter. We've got Wendy over there. Keep an eye on the feeds. She's going to pick some good questions, then we'll answer them later. We also have a whole bunch of plugs for you right now. Later today, you're getting a brand new episode of Jedi Council. We also, of course, had our first of the monthly version of Collider Nightmares launch yesterday. Yay! Super proud of what we did. We had Ethan Embry on the show. We had Guillermo del Toro on the show. Really, it's just so nice to be back together again. Yep. Then, of course, we have our Rogue One commentary up right now, which you can watch. I know Reilly's going to go buy his DVD and then come back and watch it. There's a new Schmodown, too, that drops tomorrow. And you know what? You might have had your team match between Andy and Christian the other day, but now you're going to get your singles match tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And then, as always, you get new awesome-tacular episodes every Friday. Last week's episode, there's a link in the description section of Movie Talk Today, so please go check that out. Lots of fun to be had there. Now it's mailbag time. Natasha, what's our question?
Mailbag. Okay, Bryce writes, hey guys, longtime fan since the AMC days back in 2013. My question is about the potential WGA strike. With the upcoming vote in mid-April on whether or not to strike, how would a strike affect you guys? Are you members of the guild or not? Also, how does a potential strike impact people who are simultaneously writers, producers, directors?
I'm not a member. Reilly, are you?
I'm not a member, unfortunately. I hope to be soon.
Well, if we're
I'm not a member either, Perri. Thanks Thanks for investigating that
I knew-
case further.
I knew he wrote a movie script.
Yeah, I haven't written anything that's not a poo joke in 10 years.
Glad we cleared that up.
I have an idea for a shared universe of poo jokes. So if you want
that'll work
to, if
well.
you want to get down, we can maybe join the Writers Guild together.
Well, if we're not members of the Writers Guild, how it affects us as movie commentators, reviewers, and pundits is pretty much just the fact that if this strike happens, it could possibly severely reduce the amount of content we have to cover, or it could be a super short, 20, 25 day strike, and we'll only kind of notice a little blip in the radar, but I don't know. I think some outlets are reporting there's a 40% chance that this is going to happen, and I hope it doesn't. It's tough to comment on it when I'm not part of the guild. I do have a very general understanding of what they're fighting for and what they want. And while it does make sense, it's in these kinds of situations you always have to look at the other side. And it's like, if you're demanding something, you're also demanding it at other people's expense. So if they strike over these issues, whether or not what they want is valid, it still affects everyone else, where it kind of shuts down the industry. Other people lose jobs. Other people don't have opportunities to get new jobs. It's just, there's going to be such a big, big ripple effect if this happens. And if it happens and it's a long strike again, I mean, you remember what happened last time, I'm sure. So this could be a scary, very serious situation.
Right, it can be tough on current writers. It can certainly be tough on new writers trying to break into the industry. And just as a movie fan, it makes me nervous because we have all these things that we're talking about with shared universes and all these great Marvel movies and DC movies that are coming out. However, when you have a writer's strike, a lot of that stuff has to dry up for the duration of the strike. And we saw it in 2008 or 2009 during the last writer's strike. You had movies like Wolverine Origins got rushed. You had Terminator Salvation that had to get rushed. There were movies that got thrown into production or got put on hold indefinitely. And that's very frustrating as a movie fan. They just started shooting Infinity War. So what happens? It's not necessarily a writer's strike affecting an original script that gets finished. Like, you can write a draft of Infinity War, good. Now we have a script to go shoot, but a lot of times you need rewrites during the shoot. That's what can affect a movie when you can't get in there and tinker with it at all. That's going to have that's the ripple effect you're talking about. So it makes me nervous. If you're trying to shoot two movies back to back and all of a sudden you're handicapped by not being able to rewrite anything that you might want to change, it can affect the film.
And it's not even just filmmakers. It's their reps and their agents. Like, agencies could lay people off, which is an awful scenario. And it's also not just as easy to say, okay, well, if we can't have any WGA members, let's pick up non-guild writers, because that's not good for their career either. So it's a very messy situation.
Yeah, it's an awful thing. I remember the strike, and it can break a lot of hearts out there for those new writers that you're mentioning, Mark. Broke my heart. I had a script that I was working on with a manager. That Writers Guild happened, and that script was dead. And it just really, it sucked the air out of me, because you're talking about something that I can only speak from my experience. I worked on this thing for like 5 years, and then I finally got somebody that was interested. Then I finally got a rewrite done, and then I literally had this guy say sorry, and like, your dream is dead for that moment. So that sucks. Then you mention all those movies. The big example I have in this Transformers-themed episode is Revenge of the Fallen. That was a movie that they rushed to complete because of the success of the original movie. And then you look at what happened. Revenge of the Fallen is, the worst of the bunch, I would say. And that is a movie that was just like, here, just throw it together. So you bring up Infinity War, you bring up a lot of these big-budget movies. That will affect everything. And then it scares me, too, to think what it would do for what we're doing here, because then movie news kind of dies down. What are we going to talk about? I think we would talk about Writers Guild stuff. We would talk about updates, sure. There would be movies that could go into production, like you said, Mark. They would have a script done so we can shoot it. But it really does. That strike, I watched it trickle down. I have so many friends in the industry, whether they're working at a studio, they're working at a production company. They were losing jobs left and right. And people, you're on Facebook going, hey, is anybody looking to hire? Is anybody, like, all the way down to craft service, like, not happening. These things, they put so many people out of a job. But on the same point, as a writer, I stand by the writers that are looking for better pay, for better recognition, for better opportunities. They need to put draw a line in the sand sometimes. I just hope that everybody kind of comes to a conclusion that they can get to something that works for everybody, because it is a huge industry here. And for us, our livelihood, and for me as a movie lover, it's what I live and breathe. So I'm just hoping we can work something out.
Yeah, I mean, all we can really hope for is that, both sides find a fair way to make these negotiations happen and complete them, and everyone can just continue doing what they're doing and in whatever situation that they're fighting to be in. So hopefully this does not happen. And now, on a brighter note, I don't know, maybe we could find some fun Twitter questions to answer.
Yeah.
If you do want your mailbag question answered on the show, all you got to do is email it on over to collidervideo@gmail.com, and we'll pick some to answer here and to answer on our weekend mailbag shows as well. All right, Twitter time. Wendy, what do we got?
First one comes from Chris Gomez, who writes, do you think Lorraine Warren will show up at the end of The Nun to create the connection?
What time period does The Nun take place in?
We don't know yet.
You would imagine it would be the backstory of the nun. If there's a mysterious murder of a nun, I would imagine that would be the nun that is, what was her name, Valak or something?
Valak, yeah.
So if that's like her in life and then her becoming this demon spirit afterlife, then I don't know that Lorraine Warren would show up. If she did, it would be like at the end. Like, it'd be really weird if like there was like a little like kid. It's like 5 years old. It's like, hey, I don't like you, nun. It turns out to be Lorraine Warren. I think we need that kind of connection, but maybe something at the end that you could piece together where, because obviously you do want a shared universe, what you're talking about with Annabelle or continuing the lore of the Warrens, which again, I'm all for.
I don't know. It's hard to make sense of it, because also, if my little theory about Annabelle being connected to the nun pans out, that doesn't make much sense, because I believe at the beginning of The Conjuring, Lorraine and Ed Warren had the impression that they were first meeting Annabelle and first exploring that situation, so that wouldn't make all that much sense. However, if Lorraine Warren was kind of the end tag of that, I would like it.
Yeah, I'm thinking period piece for this, because we're seeing that with Annabelle Creation. It's going back in time. I almost see a similar thing happening, because Valak is a demon, obviously, and a very old evil entity, so I don't know how Valak attaches itself to the guise of a nun. That's going to be explored. So for me, I kind of want to keep it out of... I want Lorraine and Ed in the Conjuring movies. I don't need that connection. I don't think I'd hate it, though, if she showed up. If it was done correctly, if it was done in a story way that works, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm just picturing something different in my head for the nun.
Does Whoopi Goldberg play the nun?
Yes.
Oh,
Shared
I
universe.
would watch that movie.
That's right. And then she can be Oda Mae Brown from Ghost and then talk to herself.
Whoa, we're like breaking things out here.
Like,
we are really going forward here. Writers Guild strike, be damned.
So I was going to say, if this shows any indication, we cannot have the writers go on strike, because we're making some crap here today.
All shared universes.
Yep.
All right, Wendy, what's our next Twitter question that hopefully isn't about a shared universe?
Oh, okay, good. Then I'll pick another one. I almost picked...
No. I want to hear what it was.
Bring on the shared universes.
All right. This comes from Slay It, Don't Spray It. When do you think people will start to lose interest in all these studios' cinematic universes?
Well, that's a very appropriate question, I guess, about them.
It is.
I don't know if lose interest is the right way to describe it. I think just maybe come to terms with the fact that more often than not, it's a bad business investment. I mean, sadly, I'm thinking about Power Rangers right now, and isn't it a shame that, again, I love the movie to death. I think that it deserved a lot more credit and a lot more money than it got. But isn't it a shame that there was that report saying they had planned something like 6 or 7 Power Rangers movies, and now we're in a point where everyone's doubting whether or not we're going to get a sequel? So I feel like, if anything, maybe studios should just reassess how they drop all these little news nuggets and kind of keep the shared universe plans to themselves and just let the public focus on the one that they're most focused on.
Yeah, it puts too much pressure on the viewer when you see one standalone movie, and if you already have the knowledge that a studio wants to make 5 more of these movies, that you're like, oh, okay, now I got to go back and see all these other ones, especially with something like Power Rangers. Like, you should not... I don't think you needed to come up with 6 more stories with Power Rangers. You needed to make sure the first one was successful, because you weren't sure if there was a market for it. It was not a done deal that $100 million is going to get to this movie opening weekend, and that wasn't the case. It did well, but it needs to do better in order to have 6 or 7 movies attached to it. The thing I'm more curious about is the Twitter name, Slay It, Don't Spray It. What? There's a lot of letter combinations you can come up with, and you went with bro. I slay it. I don't spray it. Thank you for not spraying it and just slaying it.
Reilly, what do you think about that Twitter handle and the question?
Well, the Twitter handle is on point, so I like it. But this is my point with the shared universe. This is my point with the Call of Duty franchise up at the top of the show. Power Rangers is a great example. Prepare yourself for the first movie, and then you see what happens after that. So is there an audience for a Call of Duty movie? But as far as being tired of shared universe, I'm not tired of the idea of a shared universe. I'm tired of everybody talking about it. It just occurred to me. I'm sick and tired of every producer. Don't worry, we have a shared universe. Like, that's going to change what people think about, like, oh, I'm going to go see this movie now because I'm excited for the 5th entry in the series. No, you got to be excited about the first. So that's my point. It's getting to a point where it seems like these producers are relying on saying shared universe and or gritty or dark, because everything's either a shared universe or we're going gritty or dark. And so just focus on the property, and also plan. Your point at the top of the show too was plan ahead, sure, but really take your time on the first one. See if the audience is involved. Shared universe, great. Just don't rely on it too much.
You know what I fear, actually, now that I'm thinking about it a little more, with people getting tired of it, is it's exhausting to keep up with a shared universe. I mean, think about how much money someone has to spend to see all the MCU movies. So I wonder if that's the fatigue we're going to see first, where people are just like, you know what, I don't got the time to keep up with all this story that's interconnected, because you're going to hit a point where you're watching a movie and you don't understand something if you didn't see the last one. So I just wonder if people are going to get frustrated with the time and energy it takes to keep up with all this stuff and the money they have to put into it.
It takes a lot of time and energy to spray it, so I would recommend just slaying it.
Can always count on you to wrap up a Twitter question. Wendy, what's the next one?
This one comes from Adam Johnson, who writes, what goes into producing a feature film? There's a lot of attention on writing and directing, but not as much on producing. #child eater.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey,
movie.
Tis a movie that I produced.
Perri's movie Child Eater. Check it out.
Yeah, Child Eater came out last week on DVD and VOD if you want to watch it. But, oh my, producing in my personal experience on that movie is probably completely different to the producing experience of the movie that we talk about on a studio scale. But producing an independent feature, especially your first feature at a film school with a whole bunch of people who are also making their first feature, is a mix between making a movie and also babysitting. Because there were so many things that, you know, my mind immediately went towards all the creative things that I wanted to do. Like, oh, let's get the best makeup artist so we can have all the great blood. Let's get a really creepy location. And then we rent the house that we're staying at. And we stayed upstate New York for a month. Like, everyone just picked up, left their apartments, and moved up there for a month. And then it came time to do things like pack the house with toilet paper and essentials, and just like people needed Band-Aids and, you know, Advil and all these random little life essentials that never even crossed my mind. I think that was one of the most shocking things about producing to me, was that, and I don't mean this in a condescending, silly manner, but like I did have to act like everyone's mother because I was responsible for 40 human beings for a month. So I think that was probably the most shocking thing. I know Reilly produced a movie too. Ellis, you didn't though, right? I meant that in the most loving way possible.
No desire whatsoever. It looks like a headache to direct a movie, to produce a movie. I want none of it. It looks like such a task that I admire filmmakers that they're able to pull it off and stay sane. I want no part of it whatsoever. But I know, Reilly, you produced and directed a movie.
Now I feel like a total jerk that you had the nicest response to my super, super mean toss.
Perri, I've heard worse, okay? As long as you keep providing toilet paper for the office here, I'm going to be just fine.
I will add to it, yes, it's tough. I didn't direct the movie, though, Ellis, but thank you for that.
Well,
I wrote it.
I felt your touch.
I wrote it and I produced it. And, man, Perri, you're right on with that. It is babysitting sometimes. It also, I lost 10 years of my life. Not 10 years. It was just 10 years over a month because I aged 10 years. Excuse me. There's so much to do. You start creatively. For me, too, it was with the script, so I started there. And then it's hiring a director, hiring the right cast, casting. Then you get into the nuts and bolts of, you know, permits, where you're shooting, locations, guild, SAG, Writers Guild, Producers Guild, then traveling. And I did it in the middle of the woods in Michigan, which is insane. I don't recommend it. It's very, very tough when you're in the middle of nowhere and you're also dealing with the elements. My God, we were shooting the biggest scene in the middle of the movie, which is Gray Skies, if anybody wants to check it out, Aliens. And we're doing aliens. We have these special effects, these alien creature effects, and we're trying to beat a storm that's coming to us within 20 minutes. We're trying to get the money shot of the movie with a storm hovering over us, which is going to ruin everything. So there are different, this was an independent feature, totally different on a studio level. My God, I can't even imagine. But for me, on a studio level, you're also working with a lot more people. The intense pressure is still there, probably even more so. It's a studio, but at least you have a lot of working parts that you can get hopefully some help.
Just so we don't scare anyone off, too, producing is hands down one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life.
Me too,
It is
yeah.
also one of the most rewarding things.
Yes.
I forgot who I was saying it to the other day, but I have like a physical copy of Child Eater in my hand.
Yeah.
And to be able to hold that and know that you are part of making it is really just one of the most proudest experiences. And I'm so proud of everybody who made it. I mean, you really can't duplicate the feeling of knowing that you spent X amount of years working on something and you completed it and it's out in the world and people are watching it and hopefully enjoying it. So, if you ever do want to produce, get ready for the stress, but also if you put in the time, energy, and effort, wow, is that rewarding.
Yeah.
All right. How about 2 more Twitter questions, Wendy?
Okay, this one comes from Joel, who writes, never seen any of the Alien films, but I'm looking forward to Covenant. Which ones do I need to see to prepare for Covenant?
I'll let you take that first, Reilly.
All right. You start with Alien. You then go to Aliens, and then watch Prometheus. That's what I would do. I mean, you don't. Actually, I would throw Alien 3 in there. It's a little underrated. I love it because you don't like it. Yeah, David Fincher's first movie. Fox, a lot of studio interference. Didn't turn out the way we all wanted it to. I thought they really missed the mark by. Well, if you're going to see this movie, I shouldn't spoil it. They really missed the mark by not really truly continuing the Aliens story. It kind of went off the beaten path, and that was a big misstep in my opinion. But I do like parts of Alien 3. Alien Resurrection, hoo boy. Not good, not good. Alien Predators, nope. Nope. Don't watch. Those are awful movies. The second Alien versus Predator is unwatchable because literally you can't see anything. Like it is the worst shot movie I've ever seen. It is so dark. I'm like, is that a human, an alien, or a predator? No, it's a dog. Like you can't see anything. So I would say Alien, Aliens, and if you're in a saucy mood, Alien 3, and then see Prometheus, you'll be right there.
I would make sure you see Prometheus, but you should watch Alien and Aliens just because you're a fan of movies. They're two of the greatest films I've ever seen in my life. Alien 3 just goes back to what we were talking about last night, Reilly, is movies that let you down. And Alien 3 was just so that for me as a kid, going in fresh off Aliens and so excited to see this was one of the first R-rated movies I ever got into. And watching that, it let me down in so many different ways. There are redeeming qualities to it, and some of the story actually has its merits. I would recommend watching every single one of them. Maybe not the Alien vs. Predator movies, because they just have nothing to do with this. Alien Resurrection is going to have much to do with this. Neither is Alien 3, but you should have the same experience going into Alien Covenant that we all have had, because that's why we're so excited for these trailers, which looks like we're getting back to the good Alien and not the bad Alien.
I am a completist, so there's no doubt that I will revisit every single one, probably even the Alien Predator ones.
Stop it, Perri.
I know.
Stop
I just
it.
can't help it. And also, I've been abusing. I bought digitally the special edition 4-pack, so I actually haven't watched Resurrection or 3. But I just keep rewatching Alien and Aliens. Oh, they're so damn good.
They're
But
so good.
if you're worried about time, the essentials are Alien, Aliens, and Prometheus for sure.
Yeah.
All right, one more, Wendy. What we got?
Okay, this one comes from NG, who writes, do you think Michael Giacchino will come back to compose for the music for the Han Solo film? And what do you want the score to be like?
Ooh, Ellis, what do you think?
I don't think that he is going to come back. I think they're going to go with somebody else. Through no fault of Giacchino, I just think that they're probably going to go in a different direction. You talk about like writers getting rushed to finish a script in time for the strike. That dude had 4 weeks to do an entire
4
score
weeks.
for one of the biggest movies of the year, if not the biggest. So it's a lot of pressure on somebody. I would like to see what he could do in a Star Wars movie going forward, because he's a brilliant composer, and I've always liked with his best scores how he's able to take hallmarks of the movies that we loved as kids, like with Jurassic World, and infuse that with some new scores that also are touching touching in a meaningful way. So I'd like to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen for the Han Solo movie.
I certainly wouldn't mind if it did happen, but there's a lot of great composers out there, and we're also in a situation where we're working on spin-offs, and there's something to be said for those having just like a slightly different score that's more in touch with a different composer style. So I don't think it would hurt to find someone new. And yeah, as long as you find subtle ways to incorporate familiar themes and familiar tones, I think it's going to connect while still feeling different.
You know what's really interesting, though? I love this question because now I'm starting to think about how much of the original score are we actually going to get in the Han Solo movie.
I don't...
You know, because it's not tied into the Skywalkers at all, even in a way that Rogue One wasn't necessarily about that, but we had shades of the rebellion and the classic New Hope story that we already know. We have no idea what this story is going to be. How much of that main fanfare are we going to get? We're certainly not going to get the Imperial March.
No.
Are we going to get the good guy theme? What are we going to know already about the score of the Han Solo movie?
It's going to be really interesting to see how they incorporate the two, because I feel like they need to a point, just to cinematic universe, establish that it's in the same world, but it should be different. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think if Christian Harloff had his druthers, he would get rid of Giacchino because he didn't like that score very much, which I happen to actually really like it. So as a fan of Giacchino, I would want him to come back, but I think in the interest of the movies, to set them apart, to give them their own identity, if there were only one, like Rogue One, and then a young Han Solo movie, and we're just getting one movie as a spinoff, it'd be really nice to get some more composers out there. Desplat comes to mind because Alexander Desplat was going to compose Rogue One, and I think he's a fantastic composer. It'd be interesting if he actually got to come back and do young Han Solo. But I think Phil Lord and Chris Miller are going to seek out their guy. I think they're not going to go Giacchino. I think they're going to look for. I think whoever it's going to be is going to surprise us, and I'm looking forward to that. But little note: John Williams only did 5 weeks to compose Empire Strikes Back.
Really?
If you think about it in that way,
That's the GOAT, man.
that's the GOAT. He is the greatest of all time, and that's John Williams going. He had some help. I know he had somebody they brought on, and he was like kind of handing it off. I don't know how Giacchino did it, but yeah, it's amazing. It's every Star Wars movie from now on, not composed by John Williams, is going to mention John Williams in some way, going, well, it's not John Williams. I mean, it's just, that's where we're going to be. But I'm okay with it. Sooner or later, we're going to have to deal with that. I just hope we get some fresh blood in and some talented blood at that.
Sounds good to me. And on that note, that is it. That's all the time we have for Movie Talk today. Before we close out, I want to thank Adam and Cody in the back there, and also all my panelists here today. Mark Reilly, where can everyone find you?
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at ReillyAround. Collider Nightmares. It's back. We're going to be monthly, but you guys share it around. We had a great time. Man, it was fun. Good being back, talking about horror movies and genre. I'm very excited about it. And then coming up, I have a little match with John Roca.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
April 24th. Nah, I'm not going to go there. It's just, I just don't think anybody that likes Transformers that much should have a movie trivia championship belt. So I'm going to take it from him because of it.
And now to the best guy I know who's not in the WGA, Mark Ellis.
Oh, Perri, thank you so much. You can find me at Chronic Tacos, I think, in about 30 minutes trying to get a free burrito. And after that, next weekend, we're all going to be at Star Wars Celebration. Some of us are going to be there on site in Orlando. You go to see us during the day at Celebration, and at night, go right across the street to the Improv. I'll be there telling jokes Thursday through Saturday. Should be a really, really good time. Bring your lightsaber, but don't light it up during the show.
And over in the corner, we have Natasha.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at NatashaLexis_.
And Wendy.
On YouTube at the Movie Couple channel, and on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat at Wendy Lee Zaney.
And you guys can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at Perri Nemiroff. Of course, check out Collider Nightmares yesterday. And we also have a brand new episode of Collider Behind the Scenes coming your way this Saturday at 2 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. Always an honor to be in the captain's chair. See you soon.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.